I'm Melley, co-founder of Scope AR, and today I have the pleasure of introducing you to the all-new WorkLink Create. My goal today is to give you a sense for what it takes to turn images, text, video, and 3D content into easy-to-understand augmented reality projects. Before I start though, I'm going to grab a mobile device, I'm going to load the WorkLink app, and I'm going to give you a sense of what we're going to create here today. After logging into my organization, I can see any instructions that have been shared with me or my team. Once shared with me, I can view these instructions on any supported device, smartphone, tablet, or wearable. I'm going to load this ventilator example and tap to drop it in my environment here. As you can see, I'm now able to visualize this equipment as if it was right here in the room with me. As you can see, the instructions are fully 3D and animated, which lets you show your users how to do things instead of just trying to explain them with text. When it makes sense, including images and video can also be a huge help, maybe from your existing training materials. You can also build in menu structures, warnings, and prompt your user to respond to questions to validate their knowledge or confirm how work has been completed. In fact, these instructions can do anything a custom-made training app can do, but these instructions can be made without any coding, scripting, or development experience whatsoever. Anyone can learn to make these instructions in just a few hours using the all-new WorkLink Create. I'm going to use my Windows laptop here today, and I'm going to show you the experience exactly as it would be for a brand new user or author, since that's what we call instruction creators. I'm going to launch a new Chrome window, although I could use Microsoft Edge or pretty much any other Chromium-based browser. Enter in the address create.scopear.com and enter my login credentials. And I'm now able to load an existing authoring project or start a new one. I'll start a new one. No download, no install, no other software required. With WorkLink Create, you can execute the complete authoring process from importing your content to publishing the finished product right here in this browser window. This means I can author in the cloud from a different computer at any time, including a Mac, and I can easily share authoring duties with a coworker without any file transfers, but we'll get to that. The first thing I want to do to start my instruction project is to open up my asset library. The personal assets section here is where I can upload and store any content I want to access while making my projects, like this image I'm going to need today. Once I've uploaded something to this area, I can use it in any of my projects at any time, but only I have access to it. By dragging it down into the company assets section, I can choose to share it with others in my organization. The company assets section also contains standard content that Scope AR provides because it's useful in a lot of different projects like basic tools, arrows, and posable hands. To get started on a brand new project though, I want to bring in a 3D model of my subject material. This is the best way to take full advantage of what Create can do, and there are a lot of ways to do that. Create accepts the industry's standard polygon or mesh-based models you may be familiar with, such as FBX or OBJ, which means you can support existing workflows as well as have access to a lot of shared content on the open market, as well as the freedom to use interesting new capabilities like scanning 3D models from reality with just your phone. But what's truly groundbreaking is that Create can import your 3D CAD models directly. It's really just that easy. SolidWorks, Creo, JT, AutoCAD, Revit, Inventor, you name it, native formats or step file exports. I've got a step file here out of SolidWorks. I'm going to just drag and drop into my assets to demonstrate. And after a few minutes of processing, it's ready to work with. Your complete file with its full assembly, ready to go. The ventilator we want to work with is a SolidWorks native assembly, and I've already got a file here based on that, ready to go here in my personal assets. I'll just drop it right into my scene. As you can see, the model looks great, and I can see the full assembly with all its individual parts represented here in my step hierarchy. That means I have the ability to take it apart and use those components to give my users really detailed instructions about how to build, repair, or work with this equipment right here in Create. For a quick demonstration today, I'm going to jump right in and start setting up an overview step like we saw earlier with some basic callouts. I'll just select one of these indicators on the panel and open up the Object Properties window. As you can see, I get access to a lot of options, but for now, I'm going to minimize some of these that I don't need and start by enabling the callout option. Because this is a smaller object, I'll set a smaller size for this callout, then set a position by defining the offset from the object. Then I can enter the title text and some additional detail. I have full control over the color and transparency, but the defaults work pretty well for me here, I think. There are a few more main elements on the main interface panel, so I'll lean on the fast forward button as I add those, but this won't take more than 5 minutes. Okay, I've got a pretty solid start here, but I want to show you how easy it is to add additional objects to the step. I'm going to go back to the asset library, to the company assets area, and browse back to some of the supplied objects that come with Create. I'm going to pull one of these arrows into the scene to help me very clearly show the airflow associated with these ventilator ports. I'm going to drag that right into the scene, and now I can adjust the position, rotation, and scale using the mouse, or I can quickly use the alignment tool to make sure the position is accurate, or go back to the Object Properties window to quickly type in position, rotation, or scale settings if that works for the situation. While I'm in the Properties window, I'm also going to go down to the Material section and make this arrow a little brighter, a little easier to see. Now that I'm happy with the look, I'm going to duplicate this, rotate it, and place it on the other port, and I've completed a simple overview step for this device. I'm going to use my quick access panel here to name this step Overview Step. I can use this area to quickly add and select steps and sequences to move around a project, but I want to add a menu and some animated instructions, so I'm going to show you the sequence editor where that kind of thing is a little more visual. As you can see right now, we've got a project with one sequence that contains one step. If all we wanted was to make this quick overview available for the team as a quick reference, maybe just to load into support calls, then we could go ahead and publish this as is. But Create can do a lot more than that, so let's make a few options for our user. I want this overview to be just one option out of 3. So I'm going to bring this down here and call it Overview. And make a new sequence called Menu. And a new sequence for instruction called Remove Battery. Next, I'm going to rename this single step in the Menu sequence to Menu, and the single step in the Remove Battery sequence to Step 1 to avoid confusion. Right now they're just copies of the overview, but we're going to fix that. Now that we have more than one sequence, we can define the flow for the user. Notice this star next to the overview sequence title. This indicates that overview is currently set to be the initial sequence, the one that loads first when new users load the instructions. These arrows on the sequences are for incoming connections on the left and outgoing connections on the right, meaning if I want my user to flow right into removing the battery after the overview sequence, I can just drag a connection. It's very easy to create linear flows this way, and you can come here and edit those at any time. Some projects will just be one sequence with no need for this, but projects can contain a lot of different ways to help your user get to what they need to know, and you can easily manage that here. One simple way to do that is a menu structure, so I'm going to set up a quick one now. I want my user to come to the menu first so they can decide whether to view the overview step or go right into instructions. You can see the star now indicating the menu is the start point. Now I'm going to select the menu step so that I can set that up how I want it. The 3D content on this step isn't really the focus of the menu page, but I do want to have the ventilator here just without the callouts and the arrows. I'm going to get rid of those. Now I want to focus on the overlay or user interface layer of this step. This area in the dotted line shows a preview of what the overlay looks like for the current step. We didn't really need anything for the overview step, but I'm going to set up a menu now using the UI editor. First, select a template. There are quite a few options here, but for now, a title menu is perfect. I can just go down the list of items and fill in the blanks. When I set up an option for the overview, I can just pick the sequence and step that this will link to. I'll do the same for the remove battery sequence. And I'm going to add an install battery option here also, and just leave that without a link for now. The rest can be disabled. And now we have a title menu step with functional buttons that will allow users to get where they need to go. Okay, so now let's animate some instructions. I want to remove the battery from this device in 3 steps. I'm going to copy this ventilator, then use the quick access at the top to switch to the remote battery sequence, and then on step 1, delete this content and paste in the new one. Now I want to remove these 2 screws at the rear of the unit, but because I want to animate this, I'm going to open up the timeline editor. Anything that's animated in a step is controlled here. So I'm going to just select these 2 screws, hit the record button, and move them a good distance out and stop recording. As you can see, each object now has a time bar animation on it, and you can see the result by scrubbing along the timeline. I can change the duration of these animations by adjusting the length or move them to determine when action should occur. I can also add effects directly right on the timeline, like a color change and this highlight effect. Then selecting the time bars lets me adjust the effect's colors and scale. Then I can duplicate the effects, adjust the timing, and I'm good to go. Then I can set the loop point and hit play to preview the effect playing back. Now that my 3D content is set up for this step, I'm going to set up my overlay. This time I'll pick a content template, which is pretty standard. Just like with the menu template, I can just fill in the blanks. And now that my first step is done, I can use the quick access toolbar to create a new continue step, which will make a new step after this one in the sequence that starts where this one left off. So these screws are already removed. I'm just going to delete them since we won't need them on this step. I'll update the overlay for this step since it's open, and then animate the battery cover in a similar way. A quick preview, and I'm ready to continue to the next step, where I can remove the battery. In this case, I'm going to add a warning strobe effect, and then add a checklist item to the step to ask the user to scan the barcode on this battery to ensure it's tracked properly. I'll add this note to the instructions to warn the user that this is a required checklist item, and you can see the indication that a checklist item is present on this step. And now that we have our complete battery removal in place, I'm going to go back to the sequence editor to show you a fantastic shortcut. If I copy this sequence as before, I also get the option to paste it in reverse. This sequence now has those 3 steps running backwards and in reverse order, which means I just made an install battery sequence. I'll have to go back in and update the text to reflect the new usage, but this can be a huge time saver in your projects. Now I'll just go back into the menu overlay, set up that link that I didn't fill out before, and now I'm ready to try this basic project out. I can do that right here in Create by hitting the play button at the top here, but I'm going to go ahead and hit the publish button. A few seconds to upload, and now this instruction is available in the cloud for my users. Before I close out though, I might just share this new Create project with my team so they can make any changes that are needed if I'm not available. And now that I've published, I'm going to grab my iPad and load those up. As you can see, the instructions are immediately ready to download. And I can see my menu, walk into that overview step, navigate back into the instructions, and walk through all those steps immediately. Thanks for joining us today for a look at the all-new WorkLink Create. We look forward to working with you.